Hi there, Bailey here. Welcome to the first episode of Sanity Central for secular conservatives and those who are curious about them. This channel was created in response to the abundance of misinformation about religious skeptics and non-believers that has been circulating on the internet for years now, especially the refusal of both the religious right and the irreligious left to accept that atheists are an eclectic group of individuals with a wide range of political and moral perspectives. I have waited patiently for years for someone to step forward and set the record straight. And as I have waited, the situation appears to have gotten worse, and I have grown tired of waiting. Many conservative political commentators would have their audiences believe that atheists only come in one variety: the woke, leftist, progressive, Marxist, or neo Marxist, socialist, postmodernist type. And the very vocal atheists who actually fit that description would love it if that were true, and therefore brush the lesser known conservative atheists under the rug to the extent possible. Therefore, it is one of the primary goals of this channel to bust the myths about atheists, such as the one just mentioned, while familiarizing the faithful with conservative atheist views that are similar to, or at the very least, compatible with their own conservative views. Of course, even conservative atheists will have minor variations in their opinions, just as conservative believers will have minor differences among themselves. And, therefore, opinions expressed by one conservative atheist may be slightly different from those expressed by another. However, together, they will form a general conservative atheist perspective, just as the collective of Judeo-Christian beliefs represents a general conservative Judeo-Christian perspective. We will begin this journey with what I believe and a preview of some coming attractions. Yes, I am an atheist, a non-militant anti-theist atheist to be more specific, with regard to the monotheistic God of Abraham. Meaning that not only do I not believe in said God myself, but I am of the opinion that others shouldn't either. However, I am opposed to using force or coercion to achieve that outcome. As for gods in general, I'm a little more agnostic, but only a little. Throughout the weeks and months to follow, I will be going into more detail about my own atheism, and I welcome sincere, respectful questions on that subject from Judeo-Christian conservatives as well as the more left-leaning atheists. But aside from an atheist, what else am I that may be relevant to the content constraints of this channel? Why do I consider myself to be a conservative? Well, to begin with, I am an American patriot, and in the United States, patriotism, which should be common to all Americans, is more closely associated with the conservatives. I was born in the United States. I grew up in the US. I currently live and, in fact, have always lived in the United States. And although I may travel abroad and explore the world, I never intend to live anywhere other than the United States, of which I have 50 to choose from. And if I don't like the climate, politics, or any other feature of one, I can always relocate to another. Nope, I never want to live anywhere other than the good old US of A. Not even one of the Scandinavian countries, which some people in recent years have begun to view as freer and happier than the United States. And yes, I will be doing a video on that. In my opinion, the United States is the greatest nation to have ever existed. Not only is it fortunate in terms of its size, geographic location, and abundant natural resources, but this greatest of nations is most notably great for its founding documents, forged from the superior insight, courage, and other virtues of the men who wrote them. The many profound statements penned in the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution, complete with Bill of Rights and other amendments. It is the freedom of speech granted by the U.S. Constitution's First Amendment and the right to back up that freedom granted by the Second Amendment that lies at the heart of much of American greatness. For too long, I have taken my right to free speech for granted and not exercised it as I should have. Now, I feel that freedom is threatened, and I aspire to make up for lost time by finally saying the things that I should have been saying all along, while I still have the chance. So, the next thing that I'm going to tell you about myself is that I am a capitalist. Why am I a capitalist? Because every country that has adopted a capitalist economic structure has improved the standard of living for all of its citizens, although the degree of improvement may vary from state to state and citizen to citizen. Whereas every country that has adopted a socialist economic system has left its citizens in poverty and despair. Although, once again, the degree of poverty and despair may vary from state to state and citizen to citizen. Also, as a true believer in and huge fan of evolutionary theory, I can clearly see that capitalism is simply natural selection applied to economics, whereas socialism is basically socioeconomic eugenics. I have 2 videos planned where I will be going into socioeconomic structures in more detail. One in which I contrast socialism and capitalism, and another in which I contrast communism and fascism, and demonstrate that Arab socialism is fascistic. Now, I know that at this point, some of you are likely to be thinking that I'm probably just a libertarian in disguise. If that be the case, the time has come for you to think again. I am a proponent of traditional objective morality, what some may call traditional family values, or even, dare I say, Judeo-Christian values. This is because, despite my unwillingness to play an Emperor's New Clothes type game involving an imaginary immortal, I can clearly see that traditional Western morality represents the set of best business practices for the business of living. I'm not saying that it's perfect, just the best so far, and certainly not in need of an overhaul, just some minor tweaking around the edges. Some believers may argue that without biblical backup, traditional morality cannot be maintained. They claim it's like cutting flowers. Sure, they may live for a short while if placed in a vase of water, and their life may even be extended a little with some flower food. Still, within a couple or 3 weeks, they will die. Except what I will be recommending is more akin to transplanting the flowers into a bigger pot with better soil, and the details of all that will comprise a great deal of this channel's content. In addition to living by the golden rule, because I have genuine emotional empathy and believe that everyone's life is innately valuable, including the lives of the preborn, I also believe that there are only 2 sexes, male and female, that they are chromosomally determined as opposed to being assigned at birth, and that they are not interchangeable. Yes, rare intersexed anomalies do occur. Emphasis on rare, anomaly, and the fact that exceptions do not negate the rule. Besides, intersexed individuals are still either male or female, but will have some secondary sex characteristics that are ambiguous. As for gender, the subject need only come up in certain language classes. There is no gender spectrum associated with human sexuality. Furthermore, I believe that marriage is, or at least ought to be, a lifelong contractual agreement between one man and one woman that involves honesty, cooperation, respect, and of course, monogamy, and should also, in most cases, involve children. As for children themselves, I believe that every pregnancy should be given the opportunity to bring forth a new life. And I guarantee you that I will have a lot more to say about that in the near future. Although I know that it is not always possible, I also believe that every child deserves to have 2 parents, and not just two of any sort of combination, but specifically one loving mother and one loving father to provide the proper yin-yang balance of examples for the child to follow. And I'll have more to say about that, too. This does not mean that I have any ill will toward those whose romantic relationships do not fit the traditional romantic relationship model. What it does mean is that I feel that their union should be called something other than marriage, and that they should not be involved in the parenting, education, or entertainment of children. Just to clarify, because I know that some people like to jump to the wrong conclusions, I am not insinuating that all non-heterosexuals have ill intent toward children. In fact, most don't. Unfortunately, the potential harm from those few LGBTQIA+ educators and entertainers that do have less than pure intentions toward children is severe enough to legitimately ruin the education and entertainment of children for all of them. I know that seems unfair, but sometimes life isn't fair. After all, society has made an honest effort to be more tolerant and accepting of individuals who were once relegated to the fringe, and now we are suffering the consequences of woke, transgender ideology because of it. Our children are too vulnerable and too precious to be risking type 2, that is, false negative errors regarding the ill intent of those who have influence over them. Naturally, this increases the likelihood of a type 1, false positive error when evaluating the potential for ill intent toward children. But that is an acceptable trade-off. When dealing with children, we must err on the side of caution and always place their best interest above the desires of adults. And I'll leave it at that for now. The objectivity of my morality is rooted in the fact that some moral structures just work better than others at achieving results compatible with my core values. At my moral core is the fundamental concept that of all of the amazing things within the universe that we may encounter or learn of throughout our lives, nothing will ever be more amazing and precious than life itself. In fact, the only reason the vastness and mechanics of the universe are so amazing in the first place is because sentient, sapient beings, such as ourselves, exist to be amazed by them. It is truly awesome that life exists, and it should continue to exist. And mankind should not only be a part of it, but a responsible steward of it. And of course, I'll have more to say about all of that in the weeks and months to come. Oh, here's a bit of trivial information about me. I do possess the title of doctor. However, I will not be using that title on this channel in most cases, because the subject matter that I will be dealing with will, for the most part, lie outside my field of professional study. Despite that subject matter being well researched, or at the very least well thought out, if a matter of personal opinion. The only reason bring this up is because I have noticed a trend of individuals who possess doctoral degrees using their titles indiscriminately, and I am annoyed by it. Finally, in addition to the goal of busting the myths about atheists, I would like to briefly discuss a second goal of this channel. Not only will this channel be different from most other secular and/or atheist channels in that disbelief will be approached from a conservative angle rather than a progressive one, but it will also be different in that instead of primarily whining and complaining about how horrible the God of the Old Testament is, and agreed, he is horrible, I will be presenting a viable conservative alternative, beginning with my series, A New Moral Framework for an Old Moral Code. So in the weeks to come, be looking for the first episode in that series, Why We Need a New Moral Framework. Now I'd like to wrap up with a few, actually 12, guidelines that I've established for this channel. Although these guidelines primarily apply to me, I say we when reciting them because I hope that my listeners will adopt these guidelines into their own lives and turn them into habits if they have not done so already. 1. During our discussions, we will define each relevant term as it comes up, and we will do so without using the term itself or any derivation of it in the definition. 2. We will avoid speaking in terms of absolutes. We will speak instead in terms of probabilities. This leads us to guideline 3. We will accept that our opponents are not all bad. In fact, many aren't bad at all, just misguided. We will acknowledge their positive attributes before dismantling their flawed arguments. 4. We will be primarily concerned with the truth as opposed to other forms of truth, although other forms of truth may be discussed and contrasted with the truth. 5. We will acknowledge that facts don't care about our feelings or anyone else's. And while on the subject, I'll go ahead and mention that I have an upcoming video in the works titled Facts, Feelings, Faith, and Fallacies that is sure to ruffle a few Judeo-Christian conservative feathers. This leads us straight into the next guideline, 6. Avoiding logical fallacies when making a point and course correcting if a legitimate fallacy is brought to our attention. 7. We will never, ever apologize unless we truly feel remorse for something we have said or done. We will never be bullied into insincere apologies. And yes, you may consider this a rare exception to the guideline of avoiding absolutes. This just cannot happen ever. 8. We will accept that mankind is made up of unique individuals instead of stereotypical groups of like thinkers. And we will treat each individual as an individual without making assumptions about their beliefs and opinions based on race, ethnicity, or other factors that are not directly indicative of their perspectives. Now, I already know that I'm going to get some backlash on this because of what I said earlier about who should and shouldn't parent, entertain, or educate children. That's okay, and I will address any such backlash in our first Q&A. 9. Additionally, we will acknowledge and accept that not everyone is like us. Different genetic combinations and environmental influences lead to a vast array of personalities and perspectives. This means that not everyone will do what we would do in the same situation, and that even when people do the same thing we would have done, their motives may be very different. Taken together, guidelines 8 and 9 should keep false assumptions about others to a negligible minimum. 10. We will admit what we don't know and try to find out. 11. We will admit our mistakes and correct them. And 12. We will always give credit where credit is due. Contributions that others make to this channel and or its purpose will be acknowledged and appreciated. Well, that's enough for now. Thank you for your time and attention. If you go ahead and subscribe, you will be notified as soon as the next video is available. In the meantime, just keep being awesome and doing the next right thing to make America great again.